Good evening. I'd like to call to order the March 9th, 2022 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm Susan Klaus-Smith. I am the chair of the commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: the site plan, the elevations, the architectural details, and the wall sections. Staff will then present the staff report, and we will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. When coming up to the microphone, please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following the public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal, and then the public hearing will be closed. Please note that the only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review or HPDRC comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owners and agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and or approvals. So if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones at this time, and I will ask my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Hi, I'm Ashley DeCubis, an attorney.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Sutton. I'm an architect. I also hold the Architectural Historian Chair.
Shauna Boyd, interior designer.
Dan Myers, architect.
And tonight, city staff, we have Elaine Lund, Beverly Jusak, and our city attorney, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel.
Good evening, commissioners. Will the board please state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
We've had none.
None.
Additionally, will the commissioners please state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding anything that's on the agenda?
Had none.
No.
None.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there are no continuations from staff?
We have swear-in, I believe.
Yes, we need to do a swearing.
Would anyone that has not already been sworn, who's going to be speaking this evening, stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing this evening is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Do we have a representative with ARC 22-123 for the property located at 2303 North Jefferson Street here today? Okay. I believe we're ready for your...
Yeah, but staff needs to do
I'm so sorry. Sorry.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. The next item on the agenda this evening is, as stated, ARC 22-123/REZ 22-04. At the location is 2303 North Jefferson Street. This is in the Tampa Heights Historic District. This application is for a rezoning. The property is currently vacant, and the rezoning request is to rezone from RM24 to a planned development zoning category. So it's a RM24 to PD. Just as a reminder, you're charged with rezoning recommendations is to review and recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historical integrity and appearance of the local historic district. And the recommendation that you will be making is to City Council. At this time, I will move into the photo presentation. The 1920s Sanborn map here shows the property in question highlighted in green. You can see it's on the east side of Jefferson Street. Francis Avenue is to the south, and Amelia Avenue is to the north. Morgan Street is a block to the west, and Central Avenue is a block to the east. You can see that at the time the Sanborn map was created, there was a residence on this particular parcel. This is the district map indicating where in the district this property is located. Again, it's about in the central area of the district. And this is the Sanborn map, or sorry, this is the aerial map showing that property in question, again in green, at Jefferson Street between Francis and Amelia Avenues. Here we are looking east into the subject site, looking at it from Jefferson Street. Note that it's a fairly small lot. This is looking at the property just to the north, which also fronts on Jefferson Street. And there's an alley just to the north of this parcel. And then directly to the south of the subject site, there is this apartment building. And then that is Francis Avenue, directly to the south of this building. Looking across the street, there is another vacant site. This view is looking north along Jefferson Street. You can see the variety of structures that are in this area. And here we are looking south on Jefferson Street. The cross street there is Francis Avenue. That concludes the photo presentation. So at this time, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and present his request. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Beckwith. So, yeah, just zoom it in a little. There you go. That's fine. Thanks. As Elaine stated, this is a vacant property that we're looking to build a single-family residence on. Up to this point, I've had 2 phone conferences, one with the ARC, one with the DRC, and then comments coming back to them on the design, location, everything. So that's where we are at this point with everything that they've asked for. It's a small lot. It's only 35 feet wide by 57 feet deep. So not a lot of room. The setbacks are on the one side of the house. On the north side, we're looking for 3 feet. That whole side is a portico, a parking area. They're requiring that I have 2 parking spots on the property. On the south side, we're looking for 5 feet. In the rear, it's just over 11, and in the front, it's 7. On that map that she had up, I don't know if you saw the apartment building. The apartment building literally sits like a foot behind the sidewalk. Their setback's like 1 foot. All of the houses and apartments to the north, all the way up to Columbus, are anywhere from 2 to 5 feet off of the property line. It isn't until you get south of Francis where some of those houses are actually set further back. They had us flip it to save the tree in the front. So I mean, that's pretty much the layout of it. Again, it's a very, very small piece of property. The elevations here, just a simple, typical, well, how do you zoom that back down?
You want to show them all at once?
Yeah, just show them all. It's a 2-story, typical bungalow craftsman style house. Again, it's all new construction. So, consistent with Tampa Heights open rafter tails, lap siding, some shaker siding, and then the details of the windows and doors are also on there. Nothing too extraordinary, out of the ordinary. And then the wall section, again, typical construction, block on the first floor, frame on the second floor. We haven't put measurements on it, but probably 9'4" ceilings on the first floor, 8 foot on the second floor. wood, like 1x6 type on the front porch ceilings. But again, just standard, typical, consistent with Tampa Heights new construction. So that's pretty much all I have at this point.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the staff report.
Commissioner, staff finds that this application is consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances in accordance with Chapter 27-113A2J. Again, your review is to review and recommend to City Council the reasonable land use changes to the extent to preserve the historical integrity and appearance of the local historic district. When looking at rezoning recommendations that have a site plan, such as the requested plan development, there are 5 design criteria for new construction that are relevant to site plans. The first 5 that are listed in the design guidelines for Tampa Heights are scale, height and width, massing and building form, setback, orientation and site coverage, and alignment, rhythm, and spacing. Please keep those in mind as you discuss this case. And additionally, I'd like to note that we did meet with the applicant prior to the public hearing and reviewed the conditions, and are satisfied with those conditions as presented and per our discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now open it up for public comment. If anyone is here who would like to speak for or against this project, please come forward. Seeing none, we will move then to the commissioners asking questions. I'll start with my left with Commissioner DeCubis. Sorry.
I think this question might be for staff. So we're only looking at the rezoning.
Correct.
Correct.
To PD.
Right.
Okay. And the reasoning I am gathering is for the setbacks, correct?
You're approving the site plan. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office, you're approving the site, this site plan that's displayed on the screen right now. That's
Okay.
That's all within your purview right now. This application will come back to you, for a certificate of appropriateness
Okay.
regarding, where you'll see more detail about the single-family home.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to make that clear. That's really the only question.
And then can staff verify or the applicant verify, are you asking for any waivers in this rezoning?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Okay.
I have no question.
Any questions?
There's a note in the staff report that notes to align the front of the portico with the front porch. Can you confirm if that has been
They just
addressed?
notified, that was not brought up in any of the phone conferences. They just told me about that probably Wednesday or Thursday of last week. I'm aware of it. I haven't been able, my architect and my site plan guys have not been able to fix that quickly.
Great.
So I have no problem doing that.
Perfect. And then, can you confirm your elevations are still mirrored? Is that correct? Did I missee that?
No, they were changed.
Okay.
They should be correct. Yeah, because the portico is on the left.
Okay. Thank you.
They were
I might have
before.
missed
They asked me to flip it because of the tree.
the larger scale elevation.
Excuse me,
No, go
I have a request for staff. Can you put the Sanborn map up again, please?
Certainly. Just a moment, please.
Okay, I'm just looking at the density of the area. All right, thank you. It bears remembering that it's, that even in 1929, the setbacks were absolutely minimal in this area. Thank you.
hit the wrong button, sorry. Have you done a study that looked at the heights, the building elevation heights of the first floors along the street on either side near the property? Normally, when we're talking about setting the elevations for new properties or new structures, we have a discussion surrounding adjoining properties and the streetscape as well, and what that average is to get a sense of where the new property actually should reside in terms of its floor elevation. We don't generally look at slab on grade conditions, so.
For the
In the
height of
historic
it, is that what you're
district.
saying?
I'm sorry?
Are you asking what the heights of the houses are near it
Well,
are?
have you done a study, and how does that relate to the elevation that you're setting your new structure at for its primary floor slab?
Well, it's based on the fact that the lot is so small, and that I have to have 2 parking spaces, that the first floor is left to be only like 400 or 500 square feet.
It's not a matter of square footage, it's your building floor slab at the ground level, it's elevation, it's finished slab elevation,
Okay,
where you're starting from.
probably like 18 inches above grade?
You haven't set your slab elevation yet?
I haven't, no.
Okay.
But I mean, that style house, yes, I know what you're talking, I mean, as far as doing a front porch and everything, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Would that come at the time of design approval?
Yeah, I think that,
We,
Might be outside
we
scope.
often have this discussion during rezoning, from what I remember.
Okay.
It's
I
a
mean, I'm-
component, it's a component of, it has to do with the massing and the relationship, or the alignment and the rhythm of the street edge.
Mm-hmm.
So we get into both a vertical placement of the new structure, and then the follow-up question I have to this is your setback. So, if you can put the site plan back up, please, and then zoom into that diagram, because it's very small. If we could zoom in a little bit more into that, please. So for me, I feel that this property has a very generous front, in that beyond the property line, the public right-of-way is very generous, so it sort of adds to the presence of your proposed structure. But what we normally will talk about in these rezonings is, how did you arrive at that setback that you are now showing for the front of your primary structure?
So basically, to get the 2 parking spots, I have to have 36 feet.
Mhm.
And we were trying to leave somewhat of a backyard. Not much, but somewhat of a backyard. So
Okay.
that's where we came up with the set. Again, it's sitting at 9 right now, but that portico will move 2 feet forward.
So the porte cochere is going to move forward, and it's going to be set with the front of the porch. And what is that setback right now to the front edge of the porch? Because I see
7,
it is 7 to that.
yeah.
And to the face of the actual structure.
Yeah, if you look right where it says CW, if you look to the left, you'll see the 7 and the 2 arrows.
Okay, and then the porch depth is that 4.67 or so that we see?
Yes,
It's a little hard to read. So not quite 5 feet deep, so that's almost 12 feet to the front of the facade, the primary facade of the
yeah,
house.
yeah.
Okay. I'm just writing some notes.
A question for staff. Do you have available for us details respecting the RM24 zone, respecting what that minimum lot size is?
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. I do not have that information with me at this time, and I certainly don't. Okay, just a moment, please.
I asked the question because I'm interested to know if this is in fact a conforming or a non-conforming lot under R20, what is it?
RM24.
RM24.
okay, I have one follow-up question while she's looking for that. There
Thank
is
you.
there is no accessory structure, correct?
Mm-mm.
Right, so there was just a note in the
Yeah, I saw
report, so I just wanted to note that. So you were only required to have 2 parking spots on your property that you had to maintain?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I have no other questions, so.
I'll waive any further question. I just would like to have some indication as to
Well-
what constraint the RM 35
I understand.
might have.
You
So-
wanted the RM24, that's originally what it was,
That is
RM24. So, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office, the minimum lot area, is that the question that you asked, is 5,000 square feet?
Okay, because if you do the math on this one, it's just under 2,000.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Any
So
other,
basically, it's a non-conforming lot.
Correct.
any other questions? No? So you have 5 minutes for rebuttal?
I'm good.
Okay, all right, well, that was
I think
easy.
we've covered it.
All right, so we will close the public hearing and we'll discuss the case. Any
I was just
comments?
gonna add the note to, align the front porch to the porch.
And I
That-
know it'll
that-
come back for certificate of appropriateness in terms of the elevation,
Yeah.
the slab, so I'm not worried about that. I just needed to understand. I think that's the only condition, right, that we've. Any other,
Any other?
Nope.
no?
And
Motion.
again, this is just a recommendation to City Council. Okay.
Yes. So if we have, I just want to be clear, if we have any recommendation that is like a conditional thing, we need to be very clear about it, so when it moves forward, they understand what we're asking for, or suggesting, recommending.
Move to recommend City Council approve ARC 22-123/REZ 22-04 for the property located at 2303 North Jefferson Street for the proposed rezoning from RM24 to PD with the following conditions. That the front the porte-cochere is modified so that the front of the porte-cochere aligns with the front porch. For reasons that the scale, height, width, massing, and lot coverage is consistent with the Tampa Heights Historic District.
In a second.
I second the motion.
And you understand the condition?
I do.
The fourth, okay. So all in favor, please state aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed, saying none. We have 5-0, so motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I am staff with Historic Preservation. Moving to the next agenda item, which is ARC 22-142. This is for the address of 915 South Dakota Avenue. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The primary structure is a contributing structure that dates back to 1914. The underlying zoning is RS 60. The request this evening is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction for a detached accessory structure with some site improvements. The approximate square footage of the accessory structure is 870 square feet. As we saw in the first presentation this evening, this parcel is close to Bay Shore, but it is outside of FEMA's regulations. So no FEMA requirements are associated with this. The structure will receive the automobile as the drawings will show. Going to the Sanborn map from 1929, property in question is indicated in the green parcel. It does front Dakota. There is a alley that runs to the rear of the property that runs north and south. To get a vicinity of where you're at, you have Rome that runs to the west of the subject site. To the south, you have Watrous, and to the north, you have Morrison. This is looking from above. As I stated, you see the proximity to Bay Shore, but as all projects prior to coming forward, we route them through the different departments and this project as presented can move forward. This is the primary elevation, which is the front elevation off of Dakota. This is looking at the north elevation. Once again, a high-end craftsman-style home. You see the multiple gables, the overhangs, the appropriate casings of the windows. This structure has corner boards, and it is elevated from grade. Staying on that north side, this is the abutting property to the north. Moving to the subject site, this is the south elevation. It has the engaged front porch, character-defining chimney. You see the overhangs and the bump outs that are characteristic of the Craftsman architecture. This is the abutting property to the south. A couple of street shots. This is obviously looking towards Bay Shore. And then down Dakota to the north, back into Hyde Park Village. This is looking down the vehicular access past the gate that was there, the approximate location of the detached accessory structure. We'll go where this shed is at. This is a non-contributing shed. This is looking back at the subject site and at the rear elevation. The condition of the alley, which is a drivable alley and obviously has a solid waste pickup. That concludes the photo presentation. At this time, the agent could address the board. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Jamie Mayer from the law firm Hillward Henderson, representing the applicant who is present. My address is 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 3700 in Tampa, and I was sworn in the first batch. I have a PowerPoint presentation. Is that possible to load? And if not, I'll just show it on the Elmo. Oh, wow. Thank you. I couldn't tell. Okay. So, again, as Mr. Vila correctly explained in the introduction, this is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for a new accessory structure with site improvements, and of course requires the demolition of a non-contributing accessory shed structure. There's also a concurrent design exception approval pending, which is pending this approval, so it's for the height. We addressed the conditions that you see in the staff report in preparation for this hearing, so that included, as you'll see, cleaning up the site plan so that it's a little more clear. There was some extra information on there that just wasn't required or wasn't helpful. We also have showed where the AC unit will be on both the elevations and the site plan, which I will also show you. And then we also have included material samples, which I'll walk you through in a minute. So yes, this is the proposal. As you saw in the photos, there is a non-contributing shed structure in the backyard, and the new accessory structure is going to go in relatively that same northwest corner. It's going to satisfy all of the setbacks and separation requirements, and you just saw these, so I won't belabor them, but these are the elevations of the primary structure. So it's a two-story accessory structure with a garage area on the first floor, and the second floor is open recreation kind of flex space. Again, as I said, satisfies the yard, the setbacks and the separation distances between structures. The new structure is going to be aligned with the existing general layout of the site and the primary structure, and satisfies the Hyde Park design guidelines. The materials and the design are reminiscent of the primary structure. Of course, it stands on its own. It's not a replica, but as you'll see in our materials, we've selected them to be very reminiscent of the primary structure and compatible with it. So a closer look at the elevations. It's similar to kind of some of the other newer accessory structures that you might see in the area and in the immediate area. In fact, the AC unit I want to point your attention to on the north elevation at the very bottom. This is actually a mini split unit, so the bulk of the equipment is actually going to be on the interior of the structure in that first floor garage, and anything that's on the outside, there's a fence that separates this structure from the adjacent neighbor to the north, and as you can see, the location of this AC unit is going to be completely below that fence line, so it won't be visible to neighbors, both whether from the street, of course, because there's a fence from the street and also from the side. So this is our site plan. As I mentioned, if you'd seen the previous site plan, this is a lot better than it was. You can see the footprint of the accessory structure. There's actually a little extra room in terms of the accessory structure setbacks on the north and the west boundaries. In terms of materials, for the doors, windows, overhang, walls, trim, kind of the porch materials, hardware, the main roof, the materials are going to match the existing primary structure. There's an eyebrow roof proposed for the porch, which is going to be crimp metal, and the garage doors will be, I'll show you a cut sheet in a minute. Of course, there's currently no garage doors, so that will be new relatively to the primary structure. So here are some visuals of the hardware, trim, the siding of the primary structure, and kind of the general color scheme of the primary structure. And again, this is exactly what they'd like to incorporate in the new structure. The appropriate windows, kind of a similar mix. The fenestration pattern is going to be reminiscent of the primary structure with that mix of double hung and single pane casement windows. And so you saw that the existing shed has a crimp metal roof, a different color than the applicant would like to go for in this new design. But the main portion, the roof at the very top of the accessory structure, will be the same asphalt shingle as the existing primary structure. But the eyebrow roof will be a metal roof, which is a nod to the previous structure and to the fact that metal roofs are seen throughout the district. And here's some tear sheets of the new kind of elements that this will be introducing to the site. I don't want to belabor or take up too much of your time, but to touch on the Hyde Park design guidelines, generally this is not going to have any effect on the rhythm or spacing or that vista if you're looking up and down the front yards, because this is a rear yard accessory structure. It's aligned with the existing site layout, and it's using quality materials. It's going to maintain quality within the district, both specifically to the site, which, as you saw, the primary structure is of high quality and well kept, and it will maintain that quality, and it will be overall compatible and enhance the district. So we welcome any questions, and we respectfully request the board's approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Avila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Staff finding that this application is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines with the plans that we reviewed on February 16, 2022. If this project is to move forward, that the design exception that is in process receive approval for the height increase from 15 foot to 22.5 feet. That the applicant discussed the finished wall material. I might have missed that through her presentation, but if it's a composite or if it's a wood to match the primary structure. And lastly, the structure is a very simple, modest, two-story detached accessory structure with multiple roof materials. I think that warrants additional conversation through the board. And I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Anyone here for or against the project that would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to commissioners asking questions. So, any questions for the owner or agent?
Can you confirm if your exterior wall material is composite or wood to match the existing structure?
I'll answer that. I'm Geraldine Reed, homeowner. We plan to use hardy board. We want to see it applied and match the lap siding. Our reveal is only like 2.5 inches, so it's a little bit unique in that. We went through that on a addition that this board approved in 2014 and used wood. So I don't know how to answer that with a little bit, but we want it to match existing. We're just a little bit concerned about how it looks because we had it actually milled with the reveal on our addition wood. Hardy board obviously is hardier, and, you know, we would like that, but we do want to see it in application. So I don't know, maybe we work through staff as we get in the field and execute, so.
And can you show the elevation where you're proposing the metal roof?
So, can you see my mouse? No, okay. Well, it's the, kind of like the white, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
on the
white.
southeast, I guess, of all of those four.
And was consideration given to using the same roofing material as the primary structure?
It was, obviously, we're doing that on the main roof. I don't know, I guess I had this moment one day looking out at the current little shed, and design-wise, I think it's aesthetically pleasing, so, and I see them a lot as I walk the neighborhood, so, we're open, but we certainly, I think it just is a good little nod to our little shed that served us so far for 10 years, but it's ready for an upgrade.
Thank you.
Mhm.
While we're looking at this elevation, I understand the nature of that shed roof, but I guess on your east elevation, we have what appears to be a lower roof. Is that a projection of some sort? Because I don't see this on other of your elevations, particularly your north and your south
Are
elevation.
you talking about
What's happening with this?
how the wood lap goes above the porch overhang? I'm sorry, I don't.
I think he means like that second roof. I
It's
think
the
she just,
It's the second triangle.
The second.
That
oh,
lower
I think she's
one.
not showing it on the, and we apologize, our architect is not present, but I
Oh,
see
this
exactly
one
what you're
doesn't.
talking about. So like it would, you would see it
No,
coming.
you can't, I thought you're on a, we can't write on it.
Okay, so if I, instead of, so back there, we would need to see it hanging out over here a little bit?
They can't see where.
Yeah, I know, am
Yeah.
I seeing you, is that?
Yeah, I think that's what
Okay,
he's saying, yeah.
I think it's just not shown on the plan and needs to be on the plan. We're not, it's not an illusion from the front and not in the back.
Okay, so it's not flat, there's actually a projection
There
at that
will
point
be
in
a
time.
projection,
So-
yeah, and I know staff asked us to make sure we matched the roof lines, those two, I guess the gables,
Okay, so we have that whole projection, it's going to have a roof.
okay?
Is that also going to have a metal roof, or will that be a dimensional shingle roof?
No, that would, I don't believe so. We can match asphalt, and that would mimic the front elevation of our house. It has that off of Dakota as well. We would do the asphalt there, unless you want to think otherwise, so. But I think it, you know, to me, the shed, or the porch roof is so distinct. Those two are really, again, sort of a nod. If you look at if we went back to the elevations off of Dakota on our front, that's how we have two gables with the asphalt shingle. So I think it should match that.
Can we revisit your site plan, please? Okay, your existing accessory structure is located where with respect to this site plan?
I can show that on the Elmo if that's easier. I have the full,
Yes, who's
Yeah.
circling? It's, you know, it's in like,
oh, okay, you can
Yes.
see that, yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's what we're looking at right there. Okay, so you're basically working from the same spring line of the existing plan, but it's expanding in whatever direction it needs to go into. So then, in that respect, I understand what you're doing with the site and its fencing, but do you have a projected view of what this looks like from the street front? As you look down the side of your property line,
no, we have not had that.
you do not have a view of that or a proposed change in that perspective? Because you're now going from a one-story construction, which has now gone, well, if you want to, a half-story construction, being a utility shed, now going into basically a full two-story but small building.
Sure.
Because I would be interested in seeing how this looks like with respect to the character of the existing contributing dwelling.
So is that, and that is just help me through this, a rendering that the architect prepares, or is that, because that sounds almost like you, I guess that is, you see someone sketches the actual existing structure with the, okay, we had only charged them obviously to do the new. So, I mean, we can have that prepared.
Thank you very much.
I have a question about this site plan. Does it indeed show the new structure on this site plan? Because I'm having a hard time reading this
It
plan.
does, yes. It says the the two-story frame accessory.
Okay, and then the dash lines are the overhangs?
Correct.
Okay, and then the porch is just in front right there, Ron? Yeah,
Yep,
right
he's
there?
got it.
Okay. Can you put the floor plan back up, please, for me? Because I'm just losing my orientation right now on this project. Do you have a floor plan?
yeah,
of
we
the-
do.
Just the ground level? I don't need to see
Sure.
all the.
And I'll show that on the Elmo. So I didn't.
I think we need to hit a button for you.
Yeah, I don't wanna guess which one.
Okay, I'll let you touch it. Yeah.
Get my steps in today.
Is there a framing plan right below it? Looks like it, that is relevant as well. Okay. Okay, go back to the plan, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ron. What size are the columns intended to be on the porch patio area?
Measurement on there. I know, well, this would be something my husband knows, and I apologize. The sob story is in the hospital, and I am filling in, so
So
it's a little
sorry.
no, it's okay. I didn't want to have to play the card, but he knows this by heart. I think we have, is that 1 by 1'6"? Is that a measurement on that? No, 6 by 6 post with hardy wrap, 4-inch cap, and
Okay.
6-inch hardy base.
Okay,
6 by 6. Sorry.
6-inch hardy base, so that would be another trim piece over it. Okay, and the metal roof, so the covered porch is facing inward towards your yard,
Correct.
Pool,
We have a,
right?
yeah, a
South.
pool. Mhm.
and then the garage entry to the street is the lower part of this plan, right? Where the double doors are?
That,
Garage, oh, sorry, go on.
no,
The garage faces, it's aligned with the existing drive, so it faces east. Those double doors are not, the architect kind of made them look like they're the same kind of door, but
there'll be a double swing open door to from the garage out to the porch overlooking the pool. So the only functioning garage door and true garage entry, other than those doors, is on the east elevation. The one on the south elevation looking towards the pool is to be about the same size.
Correct,
but-
so that, when looking at this plan, I'm not gonna do directions.
Okay.
Because I'm just turned around for some reason
Sure.
on your project. The bottom part of the plan is the
Mhm.
part facing the street. That's where you're gonna
Correct.
come in with a car, correct? So that's your
Correct.
garage door, whether they're swinging or overhead.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I think I'm good now. I have no other questions at this time. Any other questions? No? All right, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if there's anything you'd like to add or respond to.
Well, I mean, I don't think we have anything to necessarily respond to, but just, if there are any other questions or conditions, of course, we would want to discuss those in advance or, just know what the conditions would be.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and we'll discuss the case. I really think the only issue for me is the two roof materials. I'd rather it be all metal or all.
I actually like it.
I think that we see the use of a 5V crimp particularly as, because at one point it was the very cheapest form of roofing that you could get.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot in a sort of casually added porch.
Right, and it's something that you're not gonna see from the street. It's gonna be, facing the pool. You're not
Yeah.
gonna see that anywhere, except if you live there.
But in a lot of vernacular building, you might have a wood shake
Mhm.
roof, but then, you would get this 5V crimp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get the guy down the street to build you a quick little porch.
You got it.
I understand.
But we have to remember, there's the added pediment and expansion on the other side, contiguous to this too, that's supposedly of a shingle roofing type material.
Right, to
So
match
a lot
the
of
existing.
materials happening all at once.
Well, yeah, the concern there too is because it's not drawn property is to understand the relationship as it turns.
That's correct. But I agree with you, it's, you know, it's, a choice is gonna have to be made. It really should be all metal, or it should be much like as it is right now for the existing accessory structure, or it go all shingle as it is now for the existing main dwelling.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I look at it as that's an applied gable at the lower gable there. I think it's just applied, and there's, you know, there's
Well-
18 inches, maybe a foot.
There's something not drawn properly, so we can't tell.
Yeah, but I don't think that there's much there, and so it, you know, becomes sort of unimportant in the grand scheme
I was
of
gonna say, I
things.
don't think that's a material aspect that would change anything, because you can
staff
see
put-
it on one elevation.
The staff put that elevation of the proposed up with the double gable end. Maybe it should elevation sheet, there we go, thank you.
Yeah, the east elevation there shows up.
There's something missing.
Yeah, I think even without the material discussion, there's. How those two roofs are coming together is complicated. I understand why they're putting that other gable there, because those two openings, they're trying to protect them in some way, even though they have the little drips, it looks like, but.
I think it also helps with the breaking up the scale.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, but they didn't do it on the west side, so,
And we should see some sort of indication on the longer elevations of this projection, whether it's whole building or just a gable, a semi-gabled roof expansion.
but even so, my concern is that, because it is not shown appropriately, have they thought about how that gable end comes in and meets that shed roof? As I'm looking at it, I
They
think
would
there's
share
a,
that same
yeah,
corner plane.
there's a concern there, and, the materiality being that close to the metal. If the metal is truly something we can live with, a mix, I would support all the lower level roofs being one material. That would help in the conversation in terms of a continuity in language for the new, and being able to marry those two roof forms, the gable end and the shed. Because I think there's gonna be a conflict there anyways. It looks like they're the same elevation and they're gonna meet at some point, and you're gonna have asphalt hitting metal. It just doesn't work. From a material standpoint, as well as the detailing, right?
Right, I think that, you know, in a vernacular building, they would do everything that they could to not have that happen, and then they would put asphalt shingles on the sort of applied gable, just because they're so easily cut. That's my thought.
I understand the historic reference, but I'm saying the reality here is that there's an indication that there's a shed roof about to hit a gable end. And that shed roof has an exposure. It looks like it's suggesting 6 to 12 inches exposure beyond the face, which is going to intersect this gable end, whether it's 12, 18, whatever. They're gonna meet, and that's the complication. It's the detail of that, but it's also metal and asphalt, and they're gonna be pretty close, if not meeting the planes, so.
And they're showing a 6-foot garage door?
6 foot wide?
Yeah.
I don't recall if it's 6 feet or not.
Oh, it's a 6-foot garage door, and that east elevation looks not nearly as nice if you put in an 8-foot garage door. But they've kind of sketched that in on the plan. So there's an elision there. If you take a look at the plan, Could you put the plan,
The floor plan.
floor plan?
I'll get it from
Oh, they had it as a sheet of paper. Thank you.
See, they show, yeah, so they have the man door to the, to the far right, then they have the 6-foot door, and then above that, they have a dimension that seems to indicate that they were thinking about an 8, but they didn't want to draw it. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see that line.
Can we reopen the hearing? Okay.
I move to reopen the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. A motion carries. We're gonna ask a couple of questions because as you can tell, we have a couple of concerns. So, if you look at your floor plan on the left side of the paper, which is your ground level plan, at the entry doors, which are those 2 double doors that are facing the street entry, you have a note there, at least your architect has a note there in parentheses, the number 2, and then 3060, which to us means 3-foot wide panels that are 6 foot high. There are 2 of those swinging lines. Then right behind that is a dimension string. It seems to indicate 8 feet.
I think the 8 feet is not applicable. We, based on working with staff on that elevation, we are comfortable limiting the door to 6 foot, so I agree. And we've been able to identify, like source a 6 foot wide door there, so I don't believe
I have a
it.
follow-up question. Are you indeed not intending to ever park a car in this accessory?
That's not correct.
Was there ever a discussion?
Yes, I mean,
So
we
maybe it's a
certainly have-
left,
yes.
it could be a leftover from a
Correct,
prior.
for future owners, but we personally do not intend to. So it is designed with the ability to do that.
So I have one more question, forgive me. Is this framed, wood framed, or is this block structure behind the siding?
No, we plan to do wood frame construction, I believe.
Okay,
Yes,
all right.
yes.
Any other questions?
We can close the public hearing, right?
Before you close, can
We
you
have-
just ask them if they have any rebuttal or?
Yep. So we're gonna close it, but do you have any follow-up rebuttal?
No, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the hearing again and continue to discuss the case. So,
I feel that with this tiny little building that staff can handle the coordination of the front gable with the side 5V crimp.
as well as the materiality, whether or not it's all roof, all
Yeah.
metal, or all asphalt?
Yep.
I concur.
Okay. I think that's the only thing. Don't forget that there is a design exception on this project.
Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 22-142 for the property located at 915 South Dakota Avenue with the following conditions: that the design exception is approved, that the final exterior wall material is coordinated with staff, and that to coordinate with staff on the second gable of the east elevation on all relevant elevations. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines in the city of Tampa for the following reasons: that the scale, massing, and building form are consistent with the district.
Did you include the design? Okay, sorry.
I second the motion.
And you understand the conditions put forth?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So all in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you and congratulations.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Staff. The final item on the agenda this evening is ARC 22-145 for the property at 1701 North Florida Avenue. This is in the Tampa Heights Historic District. The application is for new construction. It's an apartment complex which includes this parking structure within it and storefronts, and also site improvements. There's some history on this property, which I'll go over briefly here in the previous action. So in November of this year, the ARC reviewed a vacating application to approve the vacating of an alley within the property. And it was reviewed again in December, as the first review in November was tied. The recommendation to City Council for the vacating of the alley was to deny the alley vacating. However, this was approved by City Council in January of this year. Additionally, there was a rezoning recommendation that was heard by this board and recommended to City Council, and that was in November. That was this board motion to recommend denial of the rezoning. However, City Council did approve that in January of this year as well. So the rezoning was from RM24 CI and PD to a PD. So the as you review this application, please keep in mind that the site plan and the massing are set by the PD. So moving into the photo presentation, we have the 1920s Sanborn map of the area. This particular property is bounded by Oak Street on the north side, Oak Avenue on the north side, 7th Avenue on the south side, Florida Avenue on the west side, and Morgan Street on the east side. There is one remaining historic structure on this property, and that is at the corner of Oak and Morgan there, and that has been approved to be relocated to across Morgan Street to the other, just across the street to just across Morgan Street along Oak Avenue. Excuse me. The other two remaining structures on this property are not historic. They are non-contributing structures, and they can be approved with a staff approval. Their demolition, rather, can be approved with a staff approval. So looking at the Sanborn map, you can see that there was quite a variety of structures at this location. There were some larger houses as well as commercial uses on the site. Looking at the historic district map, you see the property highlighted in green at the very south end of the historic district. You'll note that the local historic district boundary is shown in red, and the property is entirely within the local historic district. However, the national district boundary is in blue. That's because the national district boundaries are, and it does not encompass the entire site, but the national historic district boundaries are drawn to incorporate the tightest concentration of contributing historic structures, and unlike the local historic districts, are not designed for practical planning purposes. This is the current aerial of the property. Again, you see Oak Avenue to the north and 7th Avenue to the south, Florida Avenue to the west, and Morgan Street to the east. And the local historic district boundary is shown there in red. Moving in a little closer, this is the site, sort of a perspective aerial of the property. Again, outlined in green with the historic district boundary shown in red. You can see the existing historic structure at the northeast corner of the property there. This is a view looking at the subject site from the intersection of 7th and Florida Avenue. We're looking northeast. This photo is looking east onto the property from Florida Avenue. This site is looking south from Oak Avenue. This photo is also looking south from Oak Avenue at the subject site. We have one more picture looking south on Oak Avenue here, and then as you can see the historic structure here at the corner of Oak and Morgan. Moving around to Morgan Street here, we are looking west down the previously platted alley. This photo is also looking west from Morgan Street. Moving around the south to 7th Avenue, here we are looking northerly toward one of the non-contributing, non-historic structures on the site. And then this is a view of the other non-contributing building on the site. And we have another view of the platted alley that was recently vacated on the site. And then finally looking north from 7th Avenue at the southwest corner of the site. This view is looking north along Florida Avenue. You can see the light at the intersection with Palm Avenue in the distance there. And this view is looking south along Florida Avenue. This gives you a bit of a sense of how Tampa Heights got to be known as the Heights of Tampa. This view is looking along 7th Avenue toward the east. And this view is looking along 7th Avenue toward the west. So we're on the other side of Florida looking into the historic, this is still within the historic district, but these are some of the other commercial structures that are within the district currently. That concludes the photo presentation. So at this time, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and present their request.
Hello, I'm Matt Durbin, one of the owners of the property and applicants for a project that we're real excited to bring to y'all tonight. We appreciate the opportunity. As was mentioned, we're excited to have achieved our PD and setting our site and our massing. And really want to send a thanks to staff. They've taken the opportunity to meet with us several times as we've worked through their comments as we continue to refine our building and make sure that it's in the appropriate form for the neighborhood. And actually, I'm going to turn it over to somebody who's much better versed than me to talk about what we've done and how what we're presenting in terms of the architecture and the project. So, for no further ado, Saul, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. I'm Saul Fleischman, CEO of Fleischman Garcia Architecture. I've been sworn in. My office address is 324 South Hyde Park Avenue in Tampa. A little bit about my credentials. I was born in Tampa Heights Hospital. I've been practicing architecture this 2 months, 50 years in Tampa. I was a founding board member of the ARC and served for 6 years, and 4 years of that I was chairman. I was also a founding board member of the historic Tampa Hillsborough County Preservation Board and served on that board for 20 years. I've designed, or my firm has designed, most of the large-scale projects in the Tampa Heights Historic District or nearby, including the rebuild of Tampa Heights Elementary School, the old Robert E. Lee School. And when it was the Michigan Avenue Grammar School, my mother actually went there. We've done Stetson University College of Law. We've done the Ferguson Law Center nearby, Metropolitan Ministries, the Patricia Sullivan Elementary School, and Bob Gilbertson Central City YMCA. So I love Tampa Heights, and I love this project. I think this would be really good for the Tampa Heights Historic District. And why? It has a lot of quality, details, materials, that are appropriate to the historic district, and I'd like to show you those. And maybe it'd be easier. Elaine, did I throw you for a loop? Okay. Thank you, Ron. Let's just start with the roof line. We have a combination of hip roofs, which are very indigenous to the historic district, and flat roofs. We've got some ins and outs in the facade to create interest in shade and shadows. We've got brackets, you can see under our 4-foot overhangs, very indigenous to the historic district. We tried to respect the proportions of windows. They're tall and narrow. We have horizontal cornices, varied roof heights, belt lines. One of the things I really like about it is the use of brick at the lower floors. It grounds the building, it gives it gravitas, it gives it movement up and down. The rest of the building is done with fiber cement instead of stucco. It's a reference to the historic stucco in the district, but it doesn't crack. So it's really a better quality material. We have metal railings at our balconies. These are going to be in bronze aluminum. Within the balconies, you can't see them in the renderings, but we have horizontal lap siding made out of hardy lap siding. So we've got a bunch of different materials. We've got projecting overhangs, awnings, both fabric awnings and standing seam metal awnings with diagonal brackets to give scale down at the pedestrian level. We've got some really nice historic looking wall sconces. We've got post lights with a similar light fixture on those as well. So we've got a lot of things, and I'll go through those and show you in other renderings we've done. And we do have a parking structure in the building, which of course is necessary with the density we have. And we've tried to reference the historic proportions of windows by the openings. They're tall, narrow, vertical windows. And we have the aluminum railings at the bottom of the openings. Those are 42-inch high bronze aluminum railings. In order to block the headlights of the lights, we're going to have a bronze aluminum panel behind the vertical pickets. When we get down to the corner of Florida and 7th, where we have our storefronts, commercial storefronts, we have a very nice arcade of brick columns. Again, we have the light sconces on the columns. We have an aluminum projecting flat awning, and we have the signage as freestanding letters on the awning in some areas and on the wall in other areas. So we have a lot of shade and shadow and movement at the important corner of Florida and 7th. On the north end of Florida and Oak, again, we have our storefronts, projecting awnings, signage, tower element at the corner. And then we thought it was important to show you at the pedestrian level. This is a blow-up of some of the entry stoops on the Oak Street side, where we have raised stoops with bronze railings. We have projected awnings with diagonal brackets supporting them. Again, we have our wall sconce lighting and very nice landscaping. As far as materials, instead of bringing in samples, So I referenced the fiber cement boards in 3 colors. We have the bronze windows, which are going to be aluminum, and the handrails and porch railings are also the aluminum bronze. We're going to have Acme brick in a real nice range of reddish browns. We're going to have fiberglass roof shingles and a gray bronze look to them. Where we have fabric awnings, we're going to have something fun and festive. And our metal awnings are standing seam, and they're going to be kind of a gray silver tone. That's an overview. It's late. We're happy to answer any questions you have and get into more details.
Thank you. We'll move on to the staff report.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. After reviewing the plans for this project, staff found that it is consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines. You will see in the staff report that there were a number of conditions, and I would request that you do take the opportunity to go through the applicant's drawings in more detail, as they do have quite a bit of detail to reveal. But I would request that you look at each elevation and, you know, go through those and the sections and details particularly. With that, I don't have any other comments at this time, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. If there's anyone here that would wish to speak for or against the project, please come up at this time. Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the hearing and we will begin asking questions. Before we start those questions, Mr. Fleischman, could you go through the list of conditions? There's actually quite a lot. And I do understand that you've been before us and described the project at length before, but not everyone here is necessarily familiar with all of that. So just starting from the top, wall sections and moving down, there's roof plans, landscape and hardscape plan, signage, package, window and doors, and that would be getting into what they actually are, if they're operable, that sort of thing. Historic references, and then setbacks and elevations from grade. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the conditions are, if you could go through those for the benefit of the board. Thank
Okay.
you.
Let me grab the list of them.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the city.
I'm sorry, I know there's more, but I'm not going to because hopefully.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the city attorney's office. Can also the applicant address whether or not he showed awnings? Is there an encroachment agreement that's been worked out regarding the awnings? No, they would be subject to that. And then also, can staff just verify that there was a pending design exception regarding for the transportation? Is that still pending?
Yes, that is still pending. As of earlier today, it was.
Is that actually on here? Because I didn't remember seeing that when I ran through the notes.
No, that was not included in
Okay.
the conditions.
That's quite all right. I'll just make a note.
What would you like me to start with?
Do you have a copy of the
I do,
conditions?
I do. The conditions?
Yes, please.
Yes, we've met with staff. We have the required drawings, including the site plan.
I would start with the wall sections.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. We have several sheets of wall sections. So the wall sections show that the windows, the the knee wall below the windows, the hardy plank, the brick, the sill, which is a brick sill. The windows as recessed as we can do it in frame walls. So you can see the projection of the upper cornice, the brackets, the belt coursing that creates a more shadow. Any questions on that?
I think for now, if you can just go through the project, you'll have more or less a typical wall section, and then you'll have some specialty areas, like your arcade that you had called out, any different wall types that we should be aware of?
It's pretty typical throughout. As you can see, here's one through an entry stoop, showing it's elevated.
Can we zoom out, please? I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm
It's
sorry.
just really hard. Thank you.
Sorry, there you go.
Open it up a little bit for you, so you get more of it.
Thank you.
But so it doesn't go so small.
That's probably good.
See how that helps out there?
Mhm.
Good.
Okay. So you can see the railing, that's a total of 42 inches high. You can see the lap siding on the inside walls of the balcony and the first floor stoop. Projected awnings.
And you have a parking garage, I believe, so is there a wall section for that as well that we can look at?
We do not have a section through the parking garage, Susan. We have, this is a section through the flat roof area. We can provide that section, of course.
Okay.
I'm happy to do it. These are fairly typical. Here's another of details. So it's highly detailed. You can see the brick sills, the brick on the walls, jamb condition, sill condition, head condition. There's nothing unusual. It's fairly typical.
What is the intended installation of the windows within the openings? In terms of where they lie within the plane of the wall?
4 inches behind, about 4 inches.
4 inches
the brick.
behind, I'm sorry.
4 inches back from the face of the brick.
Okay,
The brick is 3 5/8. There's a 1 inch cavity. So that's approximately it. So it would be probably closer to 5 inches. We have some more wall sections. These are showing the door heads and jambs, corners. Again, nothing unusual, fairly typical detailing and construction.
do you have a roof plan for this project today?
Yes, we do. So this is the flat roof. This is an open internal courtyard that goes through the building. These are our hip roofs in the corners. And this is the top of the parking garage. Which
Could
can
you,
see-
could you just point out where Florida Avenue is in relationship to the roof plan, just where it is, which
Yeah.
facade? Right
along
there?
here.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's Seventh Avenue, I'm sorry, this is Florida.
Okay, that makes more sense because of the
Yeah.
garage. Okay. And the mechanical units, are they on the roof? I'm sorry, did you note that? Or are they in your roof structures again, still?
I'm not positive. On the roof?
They'll be on the roof, not within the roof components, right?
Yeah, no, it'll be.
Can you come up forward, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as we work with the city and code and, you know, as we go through the final permitting, but the plan is to have the AC. in the
Rooftop
air.
mounted, but not within a mechanical space within those turret roofs,
No,
correct?
no,
Okay.
no.
I
So
think the last time you came before the board, I think you had them in mechanical rooms or something, so I just want to be clear.
You know, the only internal mechanical is the transformer room on the first floor.
So there'll be, I think you have 321 units, so there'll be 321 little condensers on that roof?
Thereabouts.
Okay, thanks.
Okay? Can we look at your landscape and hardscape plan, please, and then just walk us through that as well?
Now, whether we have a landscape plan here.
If we can load what we sent, you do have the landscape plan. What
Yeah.
Elaine, if we can
Yeah,
load that up on
Elaine,
top
can
of
we load?
the PDF that we sent?
Whatever we have to do. We've done it before.
Commissioners, this may take just a moment.
Well, we're trying to get something from your USB or something onto the screen, correct?
Yep.
So in the meantime, we can ask we can move on to some other questions and come back to that. There's a note about providing a note on the drawing somewhere that the granite curbing will be restored at driveways to be removed. Has that been added to the documents at this time?
It will be, yes.
Okay, that was also a comment that was given prior about the brick pavers needing to be removed and palletized and stored securely on this project site for reuse.
Yeah.
Has that been added to the documents?
Well, I think that's I have a question on that. Yeah, yeah.
Hey, good evening, Commissioners. Tyler Hudson, 400 North Ashley Drive. I'm a land use counsel for the project. Under the code, we really don't have a choice but to give them back to the city, and that's what we're going to do, but we want them back. We're going to make every effort, and we're willing to put whatever commitment the commission would like to that effect, but just the way the code works, we've got to give them back first. But we want them back, and I think the depictions show the presumption of their return,
So there is an appropriate note in the documents at this time that we can look at, or it needs to be added to the documents?
I think we need to, I think how that would work. I mean, a statement to the effect of we will seek to get back the bricks from the city if the city will let us. But again, the way the code is written, the bricks have to go to the city first. So I mean, I think that would be enforceable, that we will request that we get the bricks back. But again, just the way the code works, they've got to go to the city.
So there's some coordination that needs to happen between your project team and our city staff, be it legal or ARC staff, to get that note correct and on the drawings.
It's really mobility, and that's certainly a
Correct.
note that we're happy to make. But yes, to incorporate into the ARC site plan. I don't want to put Ms. Pettis-Mackel in a position of deciding on the fly if that works. I think that's something that we could work through with the staff, but again, it's the intent of the applicant to use these bricks. There's just the process we have to run. The alley bricks are
Understood.
actually in quite good shape.
Okay.
so-
We understand the complication.
Okay.
We just wanted to verify if it had been included yet. So
Yeah.
we have a place to go. Mr. Cubis, did you have a follow-up or another question related? So we're still waiting for the landscape and hardscape plan, or do we have that now? Elaine?
Commissioners, I've located the landscape plan here for you, so
Okay.
can bring it
think
up
we-
on the.
I think we need to
Can we
switch,
Yeah, we
right?
need to switch back.
So if you could please just walk us through the site plan.
Well, I think the most important thing is to, there's no way I can point it out, but on the upper right-hand corner, we have this wonderful little pocket park with a nice curvy path and very user-friendly, well-landscaped. You can see on the top, the north side, the Oak Avenue, rhythm of trees. We have some in the middle of the Florida Avenue elevation. And we've got 6, 2 large, 4 smaller ones on the 7th Avenue. We've got some palms along the southeast corner. So the intent is really to create a nice landscape buffer between the street and the building on all 4 sides.
Okay. And then in terms of the hardscape, what are the materials that are being planned for the walks and the patios and any other hardscape features that are outbound and exposed to the public view?
I think they're scored concrete.
Score concrete, obviously, on the pocket park in the northeast corner, to the extent that we're allowed to reuse the brick from the city. You can see the detail in the northeast corner as well as the circular we have a tent awning on it right now. Those are areas that we would like to repurpose and use the brick on. In terms of patios and others, it'll be concrete.
Okay. And then the garage itself, the drive on either end, what is that material choice? The aprons and the drives for the garage entry exits?
I think they're shown as concrete with, yeah. I would assume they're concrete.
Yes.
Okay. So, in terms of signage, are there signs on this project on the facades at any location? And if so, what is the intent in terms of their materiality and their construction, installation?
Yeah, so right now it is not finalized in terms of the location of the signage. Obviously, we would want it to activate the retail. Based on conversations with staff, we felt it was appropriate and consistent to have it be mounted on top of the awnings. And so that's what's been represented in our renderings. And so right now that would be the plan based on how we subdivide and the ultimate tenancy within the commercial space. But it would be, mounted on top of the awnings as depicted in.
Are those separate pin-mounted letters or numbers, or are they one monolithic sign that's mounted to the awnings? Do you know at this
Those
time?
are mounted on top of the awnings.
Yep.
There are some wall signs for retail tenants, and they will all be pin-mounted individual letters.
Right. In terms of the awning letters, are those anticipated to be individual components, or one monolithic sign with whatever the verbiage is?
I think they're shown as individual, and they should be individual.
Okay, and then will they be illuminated?
That has not been determined yet.
I would assume that we would have to illuminate them, so yes.
Okay. Are there any other signs? Will the project itself have any kind of identifier? You're gonna call it something, so is it gonna have that identity?
So on the rendering, you saw that to be consistent with the feel and look of this, it's a roof-mounted sign, excuse me, on the awning, where right now it's a very creative leasing sign that is on the rendering, but, you know, that's where it would be.
Can we look at that rendering, please? I understand that you're still in the middle of figuring all the details out, but it would help if
Yeah.
you looked at that, because I don't remember that. Sorry. Oh, the leasing. So it would be down low. Okay, that's, I was thinking, okay, so it's like the canopy that it was up higher, so it's still down low.
Still down low.
Okay.
And obviously, any names, we're open.
And that's the Oak, that's the corner of Oak and Florida, is that correct?
Yes, so that signage right there is on the Florida.
And that is anticipated to be a clubhouse of some sort? Or
Yes.
leasing office, eventually clubhouse, I guess.
So it'll mainly be a leasing office. The transformer room is next to that, but it'll be activated with the main area, as in standard. It'll be a hangout area, coffee bar, those sorts of items in there. With then, as you move back away from right up against the street, that'll be where there's meeting spaces and offices and the like.
Okay. In terms, we really need to walk through the windows and the doors. We need to understand what types are windows, and we're talking about its operability as well as its materiality, and then the doors similarly. What types of doors are in this project?
Well, the windows are aluminum, and part of them have to be operable for escape if there's, well, let's just look at a blow up. So these would be operable, those would be fixed.
And then again on the other windows, say like in the balconies and then down low at the street level.
I think it's going to, same thing, a combination of fixed and operable.
Okay.
And the doors, where's that sheet? Was the last page. I showed it. So they're a combination of glass and raised panel type look. So these are the entry stoop doors. Right. Okay. And these are the other typical doors we have in the project. And they'd be wood-like. They're going to be a fiberglass or synthetic type material to live in our climate.
What about the retail components?
I would assume those would be storefront doors.
Okay.
Standard bronze.
Yeah, standard bronze.
And those would be full light?
Yes. Trying to have maximum transparency at the ground level.
Okay. So, we need to review historic references for a number of components on this project. The building and the roof forms, including the hipped and shed roofs on the commercial structures. And there's a note here about considering alternatives to hipped roof elements such as parapet detailing typical of historic commercial structures, as well as historic references for facade proportions and window patterns. So if you have those,
So we have hip roofs, which are indigenous to the district. We have parapet walls over roofs, which are indigenous to the district.
do you have historic references with you today?
The exact ones?
Historic references, precedents with you today?
No, I do not.
Okay.
About doing things yourself?
I've said it twice today, Mr. Vila. So there's another note here about a condition from the staff report about the setback dimensions and elevations from grade of surrounding properties to show consistency with the historic development pattern. Can you please review the established finish elevation for the ground floor for us?
Yep, we have that in the building section. Of course, there's several different ones because the site slopes.
Understood.
So
I think we're more or less looking for a demonstration of what the finished floor elevation is from that particular grade condition, right? What that setting is, and then a discussion of where that elevation establishment came from. We typically look to the street as our precedent for where we start the ground floor.
Okay. This one's at 33 feet, the floor elevation at the South Florida Avenue side, and it goes up to 44 feet on the Oak Avenue side.
And those two elevations are on grade, just shy of on grade, or they're elevated?
They're just above grade.
And then the stoop entry detail that you have called out on this? Those stoops are typically what, above the finished grade?
If we look at the section, it will show about 4 steps, which I assume means 24 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Correct, I'm sorry, it's 5 steps, and it is, can't read it. So it's in round numbers, it's 30 inches.
Okay, and that was on the oak side, correct? The oak elevation?
I think it's on 7th and Oak.
On 7th and Oak,
Yeah.
okay. And, so typically we look at the historic references in the nearby properties for those elevation, the establishment of that rise. Is there anything today that you have with you that shows us what the surrounding properties have as their condition for their first level finish elevation?
I think they vary substantially.
So that would be.
No, I don't have
You don't
anything
have
with
that with
me.
you today?
Right.
Thank you.
What's the historic structure that's on the site?
It has a porch, it's raised, it's very typical to this.
Similar to this? So
Right.
I would refer back to the historic structure on site that's being moved. That is 4 or 5 steps up to
Okay.
the patio as well,
All right,
as well as the adjacent townhomes that were recently approved that have the same detail, that are 4 or 5 steps.
so in
their
terms of the facades of the 4 faces of this property, of this project, I know that the PD sets your setbacks, but there also usually is some relief within the facade, and you do have that in your rendering. Can we review those setbacks for the stoops from the main facade and any other protrusions so that we understand what that play is dimensionally from the setback line to the building facade as it moves back and forth? Looking at typical conditions such as the stoops, the storefront entries, the corner condition at the two arcades, and the stoops are the residents. They're not the residences.
We're gonna have to look at the site plan, and it's at a small scale. I actually have a bigger one in mind.
And that would also include the building facade as it steps back and as it moves away from ground to sky. So as the building does this, as it moves up.
So I think that's all been set within the PD, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of the site plan and.
The PD usually sets your setback, and it might suggest a point of reference that you can move in and out of.
Ours did not.
Okay. What are the stoop depths typically? I see on this drawing there's some dimensions, but I can't read them, it's so small.
So they are,
Yeah.
5 foot 4 inches.
I'm sorry?
5 foot 4 inches.
Okay. And then the balconies at the upper levels, the balconies are set.
Yeah, can you read it?
It's not on this one. Should be roughly the same, but it's not on that detail. We have it on another cut sheet.
It's not mentioned, but I would guess it's in the neighborhood of 5 feet
Okay.
from the
Mr.
scale of it.
Commissioner Myers, did you have a question?
Are the units which have stoops, is that the primary entry, or do they have is that just kind of a window dressing thing?
I view it as the primary entrance. They also do have an entry into the hallway to access the parking garage as well.
Parking, okay.
But no, this is obviously the way that we've landscaped and, to create a better activation, better feel that this is your front and main entrance. Yes, for all intents and purposes, this is what we hope people use as their main entrance.
Okay, thank you.
This is a question for Ms. Lund. As we move down this list, are you satisfied that they have shown or addressed any of these?
Looking through what I've seen, and it's not all what I've seen, I don't think has been entirely presented to you this evening, but they do have the elevations of the courtyards that were requested. They did go over the garage screening. And quite a few of the material palette has been covered. They did satisfy my curiosity as to whether lap siding was actually going to be used in the project, so that was referenced. There are possibly a few other conditions here, but
Okay, I'll just keep going. There's a note here that sidewalk scoring shall reflect historic patterns. I would suspect that that's either a note that you have added or that you will add. Is that the intent?
Yes, I don't know what that means, to just be perfectly, if there's more direction on what historical, is it just, I don't, happy to do it, I just need to know
Okay,
what that means.
all right. What are the roof overhangs and canopy projections?
The big hip roofs are 4 feet. And the canopy projections are 3 feet.
Okay,
I'm referring to the awning type canopies.
okay. Is there a detailed plan of the pocket park that is available to review? I know we looked at the larger site plan, but there's a request to provide a detailed plan of the park itself.
So for us, that is our detailed plan. It shows the style of every tree and every plant, every material. If there's something different,
Can we just zoom in on the park?
oh, of course.
I think Elaine
Yeah,
has it.
sorry. Trying to set a record for the number of times we switch.
Yeah.
You know, we've done it too much.
I was gonna say, you've been here too often.
All right,
You know what to do.
Good job.
Can we zoom into it? Oh, you're working on it. Sorry, Elaine.
Can you maybe just like walk us through the materials? So at the top right, there appears to be several rectangles.
So that's where we would propose to use the historic brick that came from the alleyways. We would also propose to do it in the circle location. Obviously, it's shown as 2 different materials here because it's a bit undetermined on what the materials will actually be allowed, based on what the city will allow us to do there. And then the walkways will be the same brushed concrete, consistent with whatever the direction we need in terms of to make it consistent. You'll have, obviously plush seated grass with what we're showing right now is a mound for, we find that kids and other folks like, it just creates a more natural environment. You'll have to excuse me, I don't know all the plantings we have there, but obviously everything that is allowed climate, within the city of Tampa. A variety, you'll see we have 5, 6, 7 different types of shrubs, 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of trees, different diameters, different, so we think that that'll really create, not just for our residents, but more importantly for the community. And that's why we tried to activate the hard corner on the northeast to create a more welcoming, right off of the streetscape, to try to invite folks in so that it feels a bit more welcoming, and for those that, again, more of an entry focal point that, leads you into the environment.
So what are, I think this is what Shauna was asking,
Oh.
maybe not.
Can
The
I
little,
not answer any?
no, the little rectangles, like right where you are planning to use the brick
Yep.
on that corner, what are those rectangles kind of sporadically placed?
They're at 45 degrees to the corner.
Yeah, so that was where we would use the brick, if we're allowed to
Oh,
use
they
the
would
brick.
just be pieces, they would be.
The rectangles that are, sorry, those are benches.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's helpful.
There we go. Answered the
There we
wrong
go.
question 4 times.
And then, this is just my own opinion, but it's a really weird shape. How come it doesn't go all the way to the edge of the sidewalk? That little corner, like, can we make it a nice triangle?
Yeah, I think
I
I'll
would
chalk
sug-
that up to artistic,
Yeah.
It's
I
just
would-
a strange shape,
Yeah.
just a recommendation.
I would suggest that if we put this into a condition, that we rephrase that to reconsider
Right.
the configuration.
yeah, we can have it like just all 45 degrees, so you lose that little bit of like odd section of, yeah, I'm with you. I know what you're saying now.
It is odd.
And, excuse me, is this a dedicated park? Is this park being dedicated to the city, or are you guys gonna maintain
Yeah,
this?
I don't know if we're allowed to do that.
Oh, you
I don't
can't?
think the city wanted us to do it, sorry.
Okay.
Good evening again,
Mayor, don't
Tyler
do
Hudson, 400 North Ashley Drive. This is going to remain private property. The city was not keen on accepting any legal liability for this, but there is a site plan note that prior to getting a CO for the building, we need to negotiate a easement that grants the general public the right to use the park. So I'm working with the city attorney's office on that now. But that's the plan. It is going to be as open to the public as possible. There might be some rules and regulations about not overnight, ability to close it for maintenance, but it's going to be privately owned and as public as possible.
So at this time, there's no intent to enclose it in any way and put gates that would shut it down at a,
No, not like that park nearby.
yeah, we don't need to talk about.
I don't believe there's any intent to fence this. I think, again, it's going to be open to the public, but it is going to remain private property. So to answer your question, it is not going to be a dedicated park under
Okay.
Chapter 15.
All right, thank you.
There will not be fences.
There's a
That's good
portion
too.
of the park in between, like, your stair tower and the trees. What will that material be?
So that's sidewalk right now, same concrete, brushed concrete. One thing that yeah, no, it's brushed concrete right there. We have to see if they will allow us, if you see the
All the way to the tree?
south,
No, I think what Commissioner Boyd, correct me if I'm wrong, but to the west of the trees that are on the west side of the park, before you get to the stair tower.
okay.
It's all white. There's no material hatching, so.
That's a concrete drive for trash. That's the
Okay.
trash compactor right there.
Okay, so there is some delineation missing on this plan to show where Hardscape ends and the park.
You are so correct. Yeah,
So
it needs to be a
Boyd,
line here.
got a fantastic eye again.
Yeah.
Okay. You
So
can't say
that's-
it's beneath the canopy, that's why you can't see it? No, I definitely understand.
You're gonna kill the plantings that you just
That's
planted.
right.
Good catch.
Yes,
Poor Daryl's getting beat up and he's not here, he's drawing.
that's what he gets for not coming. So do we have any other questions about the pocket part? What we
Will
see?
your awning be a permanent structure?
I would like it to not necessarily be permanent, if the way that it's drawn today, just because, one, we don't have approval for it, two, is if it's the shade screen like that, given wind loads, we want it to be able to be taken down, so it doesn't end up across the street.
So right now, the intent is more or less a tensile shade structure that the shade piece itself can be removed at
Yes,
will.
yes,
But there would still be posts, poles,
as it's shown,
masts.
as it's drawn now, yes, we would incorporate lighting.
And the material for those,
Yeah, posts in concrete, it has to be.
okay.
And if that's we could leave it open. I think there's gonna be enough shade and enough natural foliage there that we may not actually get a benefit from that sale. I call it a sale, but, so I'm happy to take it out too.
It's just a question.
No, I think, when you look at it, it may be overkill.
Do you have a material in mind for the benches?
We would like it to be consistent with kind of the overall feel, so it would be, Trek, kind of the wood with, a black, aluminum, bronze, some of that.
But no cuts yet that we can,
No.
it's all good. Okay. Any other questions about the pocket part? Okay. Can we look at the colonnades? They are I really don't understand how they work at the site plan level, so let's zoom into the corner where the arcade is. I think it's on both corners of Florida and Oak and Florida and 7th, is that correct?
Florida and 7th,
Florida and 7th, okay.
yeah.
Do they show up on this site plan or not?
They do, if you go up to this one, that right next to where your arrow is?
The first big plan,
No,
that one?
one up above that?
Oh.
Because technically it's on the basement floor. So that's the, you see on the
I don't see any
bottom,
colonnades.
bottom left,
Oh,
that's the,
can we go one floor up, cause I don't see colonnade there. Can you go to that corner, Elaine? Where is that corner?
There it is, with the signs on the canopy, on the metal canopy, and then on the building.
probably best shown on the 3D rendering.
Yeah, let's look at that, cause I am not reading colonnade. Can we zoom into that rendering?
So you can see the rhythm of the columns.
So at this point in the project, it's flush with the building, the primary building facade. You just recess the plane to accept storefront or whatever further back. So that's how you're creating the colonnade. It's not outboard of the building. That's why I can't read it. Okay. And this is on 7th in Florida, is that
This
correct?
is. you're
Florida and 7th,
looking
And
up
where is
Florida.
the intended trolley line stop?
Florida,
Florida.
Where is that in relationship to this?
somewhere along where phone says. It's TBD along that frontage right there,
Okay.
somewhere along there.
Okay, so we still, in the plans, there still is a need to put some sort of floor plan together to indicate the colonnade at this level.
Okay.
Do you have that, or is that still something that needs to be done?
Yeah, it doesn't show the columns. Yeah, we'll add the columns in.
Okay. Have all the elevations been labeled with the cardinal directions?
Verify that. The plans have.
Okay. So we need to label the elevations with the cardinal directions.
Now, let me verify. Yes or no.
Do we have a plan of the 7th floor?
In terms of
I'm at, it's,
floor plan?
do we have, well, it's, actually, it's asking, to provide all elevations of 7th floor structures, including stairwells, elevator shafts, and interior of parapet walls. I would suspect that the 7th floor is the roof level, is that correct? The main roof level?
Yeah, so we have, if you scroll down 2 or 3, that's right there, those two. Yes, ma'am. So this is the interior courtyard showing,
Okay,
and then the next one is, I believe, the other ask, which is the other courtyard, and then elevation within that.
yeah, I know, this is the elevations of the 7th floor structures, which I suspect the 7th floor is your roof plan. Is that correct? Is the 7th floor the roof level?
That's it. Well,
Is
our
this the 7th floor?
7th floor is the top floor from the southwest corner. I don't know what, I guess let me ask. what
I'm
do
gonna
y'all
ask
want? I
staff.
read it as,
Okay.
they wanted to see all 7 stories. Maybe we misread.
No,
the comment.
it's okay. Ms. Lund, is the 7th floor intended to be the roof level?
Yes,
In the request?
the intention in that comment was for the, to be able to see the structures that are at the roof level or above.
I think we'd like to see what's underneath that, the shed roof adjacent to the pool. And how you get there, of course.
I don't know, I don't see a pool.
There's a pool on the south side of the garage
Yeah.
parking.
Oh,
yeah.
that is a
Oh,
pool.
wow.
Look at you. I thought that was equipment yard or something.
So that's the stairwell where that hipped roof is on the southwest.
That's a stairwell.
So, and there's a,
It's actually, I mean, what we're seeing is a roof over a
so
stairwell.
on,
A414.
there it is on the right. Bottom right.
7th floor.
So that's the plan, yeah. So the request on the conditions from the staff report is to provide elevations of those structures so that we can understand what they are intended to be addressed in terms of an architectural language, right? So it's just helping us see the entirety of the picture, right? And the renderings can't do that for us, so elevations help us make that next leap. Unless you have them in the rendering.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, other than the elevations.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Because when I was on the ARC, we weren't allowed to review things that weren't seen from the street. We've provided the interior courtyard elevations, which are not seen from the street. This 7th floor interior is clearly not seen from the street. We're happy to do it, but I'm just wondering why we're being asked for it. Ron?
You're gonna review the project in totality, the complete project, so all elevations, street frontage and internal elevations as well. So a complete project with wall sections, renderings, material palette to be presented to the board for final approval.
Okay,
Thank you for
thank you. Thanks
restating
for
that
clarifying.
requirement.
Things change.
If you go down 3 or 4 slides, is it not shown on those elevations? I mean, it's, I guess, what is it shown there? Okay, well, we can definitely do that.
Sure.
Okay. What are the peak roof heights? I see that in that one drawing there at the top. It looks like there's at the lower elevation as well. What is the top peak roof height and the parapet heights?
If we can go to A416. We're on it. Somebody can read it. Matt, can you read this?
Oh my God.
85.
Yeah.
It's either 86 or
It's
88.
88.4.
Mhm.
87, 8.5 on the Morgan side.
And then the parapet heights?
Somewhat less than that. Let's see. They are not called out. We'll add those dimensions.
Okay.
It seems like some of them at least are 71'6".
Yeah, definitely we can call that out.
Okay.
There's 99.
I feel like that's showing.
Yeah,
It's
so
right
this
there.
one here,
A417.
9911.
73.6.
Where's that 99.11 and a quarter? Which street side is that?
That's Florida.
Let the agent.
That's North Florida.
Sorry. That's North Florida on that side?
Yep.
Okay.
That
99.
Right there is the northwest corner.
That's the lowest part of the site, I think.
Yeah.
Or the
Understood.
Is that southwest? No, sorry, that's southwest. You're correct. That's where the colonnade is.
Yeah.
But that is the Florida Avenue side.
You're looking at it from Florida Avenue down,
Okay,
facing east.
right. And then this facade is
Yes.
oak. Right, okay. I believe we talked about the depth of the roof overhangs.
We did
Um,
4 feet at the top.
So fiber cement panels, there's a request here to provide the historic reference. I would concur. It's not a material we normally see in this district. So, is there a historic reference for that material choice?
It's like I said, it's a cementitious board, similar to cement plaster stucco. It's indistinguishable from each other when installed.
Do you have any imagery that shows that in situ in an installation, not flat? No?
No,
Okay. What's the intended finish for that?
sand finish.
Sand finish?
Can you go to the middle picture, just over to the right? What more can we provide for the elevation? Is that, I mean, that's showing the elevation of the rooftop. Do we need to do more than that? Just to make sure we're,
They want the
So-
views to the side.
So typically we want to see all four, if it has four sides. We want to see all the sides that are exterior. We want to see an indication of the materials and any trim detailing, that kind of thing. So you have the start of it in this elevation, but it's so distant in the way it's drawn, it doesn't have all the detailing that we would normally see in that front elevation, part of the elevation. That's all that's being requested.
okay.
And I understand there's a time with staff and getting things produced. I do understand that, but this is a large project. And this has a lot of eyes on it, and it's gonna have a lot more eyes on it when it's actually built. So these are the things we do request because we need to understand it from that total package, right?
How it fits.
And how it fits in with the district. I'm gonna move to questions now from the commission.
The side views of these, whatever's exposed to the roof.
So if
Especially at the
anybody
pool.
has any specific questions they'd like to ask the applicant. Any specific questions right now?
I think we covered all the conditions.
Okay, but I'm asking, do you have any questions? Cause I
Yeah,
need a
where we were.
relief.
We are where we were.
Do you have any questions?
For the
No.
agent applicant, okay.
I have no question.
No question.
No questions.
No.
Okay, I'll keep going because I have questions. Do you have a drawing that more clearly shows the intended detailing for the railing at the balconies and at the stoops? Right now, they seem to be plain picket, top and bottom rail. And what are the intended shapes?
So right now it is a plain, more linear view. We have several call-outs of stoop entry detail there. So you'll see with the double top, single bottom with,
Okay.
wrought iron feel, but it'll be made out of, bronze aluminum.
And that's typical throughout,
Yes.
whether it's balcony or stoop, okay. The awnings themselves, what are the materials and for the brackets as well as the structure that's underlying?
Aluminum, tubing, bronze.
And then the under deck, what is that gonna look like?
It's gonna be the exposed structure in the bottom of the deck that the standing seam metal roof will be attached to.
Okay, are you gonna have concealed fasteners or,
Absolutely. We're
okay,
not gonna have screws or nails sticking through.
please not. Can we look at the brick detailing? I know that you have that movement through the base course. Can we look at how you're transitioning between the brick and the other materials to better understand that detail? And it may be that you go to one of your wall sections or a detail sheet, I don't know.
Trim detail of how we're switching from brick.
Are you displaying it from the Elmo or?
No, I'm sorry, I'm going my ignorance of what she was asking, sorry. I was asking,
Are you talking about,
Solid wood.
Susan, at where the brick, the top of the brick
Yes,
connects?
yes. So what I'm looking for is an understanding of, not at your openings, because I think I understand that.
Let me see if we have a detail on that.
It's the transition to the fiber cement board.
Can we
Can't
go
be
up
right.
2 on that line? There we go. No, that's that it?
No, not quite. Yeah, hold on. Here's the connection right here. Yeah.
So,
We got a brick soldier course over the window and a couple more pieces of brick, and then we have a projecting fiber cement belt line.
okay. And then above that, well, that's a window opening, correct?
It's fiber cement panel below the window.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then it looks like you have a small sill detail. Is that an extrusion or is that
It-
some sort of,
It's fiber cement.
okay. So is that actually like a molded piece that has some mass to it?
It's a double piece. It's double thickness.
It's very hard to tell from that. Okay.
Yeah.
And the soldier coursing, does that happen at every header condition, whether it's window or door?
I believe it does.
And then
Wherever we have brick above, it does.
and so the transition is always made with one of those belt courses
Yes,
Between the materials, okay.
between the brick and
Yes.
the fiber cement.
yes. You can clearly see it in the renderings.
And while you've got that detail up, that's right above that is a window.
So fiberglass and then window.
It's a what? Excuse me?
Fiberglass, then it goes into the bottom portion of a window detail.
Right, and that window seems to be set out right at the exterior of the building, right? Right on the, on the outside line there, which is,
Correct. Because they're flanged windows.
mhm.
With wood construction, without flanged windows, we've run into serious water issues with wood construction, especially in high wind and high moisture environments.
Somehow we require all of our,
Contrary to that,
contrary to that, yes, we ask that all of our windows be recessed.
Yeah, and we actually do see other details even for wood frame conditions on
yeah,
residential.
not that you can't do it, no, that's not, more of, when you're putting in 1,000
400,
windows.
yeah.
And your moisture consultant or waterproofing consultant is testing 10% of those. The likelihood for John Smith, he's doing his best job, but those details are extremely more difficult to get right 1,000 times. And so we've we've had just personal experience, you know, we've had some waterproofing issues when we've done that.
So on these particular windows, is there anything that can be done with the manufacturer selection to provide a system that adds more shadow relief to the plane? That's one of our biggest concerns when we get projects like this in a historic district, and this is massive. If we don't get enough relief in that plane, and you can make moves with the material transition, but it comes to those little details like that, especially as you get closer to the ground plane, that it's just a monolithic feel. So,
So I would say two things on that. One is that along the ground floor with the brick, it does create, you know, more a 5-inch.
yeah,
We've done what I feel was a good representation of what you see at like the YMCA building, where they do have the trim where it's not super recessed, and some of the other buildings that may not be historical, like the other donut apartment kind of more in the northeast portion of Tampa Heights, where they have the linear strips to create that sense of depth. The other option would be to change from wood to block construction, because then you can use the other detailing. It adds it's not cheap.
it also takes away from your square footage, so.
It's obviously something that, if, you know, we're willing to explore those options, but again, those are ways, I guess that's the multiple ways. What we tried to do, but for me, if it says, hey, we've got to do recessed, we'd have to switch the block, or else you're gonna have a building that is gonna be flexing and moving. Those windows are gonna be shaking, and we're gonna
Yeah.
have water issues.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't build that. So we'd have to go to block.
Okay. There's a note here to make sure that the soldier courses for the window headers are shown on the elevations to be consistent with the installation details. So there must be something in the drawings the last time they reviewed that they weren't being shown consistently.
Commissioners, this is Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. It appears that there are some, it is difficult to tell with the scale of the project, but they do appear that the soldier courses are there in these drawings.
Okay, thank you. Base band or water table. Do we indeed have a water table on this project? I didn't realize that there was a water table anywhere.
There wasn't one, but we added the semblance of one on Florida Avenue
And where
in the
is,
middle, where we had a large unadorned wall. So we added a brick detail that relates to a water table. You can see
There we
that
are.
on the North Florida elevation. There you go.
So it's a soldier course topped by,
is that a soldier course and then it
It's
has
right,
a trim?
then it's a brick, what do you call it when you turn the brick
You
up?
turn it the other way, yeah. I
Roll
forget.
lock.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Would you be willing to reconsider that detail to work more consistently, coherently with the rest of the facade?
How so? I mean, I thought this was really a great effort to create a more pedestrian feel there.
Well, you know, I know this is not Italianate, but when we look historically to bases of buildings and as they come to ground, you will often capture sills of windows as well in some styles. I would have to look at historic precedent myself to know, but it just seems a little clunky right now the way that it's stepping. And is there a datum point that you can establish that maybe incorporates some of the other features on the elevation so that it's a much more comfortable sort of condition and it translates through that facade more comfortably? It's just a question. I am not trying to design it for you, and I would suggest historic precedent study first before making any changes, but.
We'll look for some historic precedent, but
Okay.
it's, I think to put a piece of precast that extends out, a true water table, would be out of character.
I'm not asking you to change your
Yeah.
materiality. I think the brickwork is so important. I know that you and your firm are more than capable of making beautiful brick details. I'm not asking you to consider the change of material. I'm just asking, is there a possibility to reconsider the way that you transition this facade? I understand the complication here with the elevation change.
Yeah,
I can see it.
right.
But potentially, is there a datum line that you can establish between that higher side and the lower side that is a little bit more comfortable in terms of the transition between those two elevations as you move? That's all I'm suggesting, and if you were willing to look at that.
Sure, we're willing to look at it. but
Okay.
Doesn't appear to be an obvious, because the south side of Florida Avenue is kind of half level below. So,
Yeah,
it's a tough transition.
I understand. All right.
And it's not gonna read as drastic as it is now, because it's all the same brick, it's just texture.
Right, right, and you will have your landscape, but, not knowing what the trolley stop's gonna do and how it's gonna impact your project. This is the facade with the trolley stop, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So anything you can do to think about it from just that,
Sure.
they may take all your landscape away because they needed space, so.
Yeah.
If there's any way to move that faster, we'd love to have the conversation.
The
with them
trolley
now.
stop?
Yeah.
That's
To
a
figure it out,
different
it's a big
department.
unknown.
That's a different department. There is a note here by identifying exterior materials in the stoop detail, particularly for the base. I know that we looked at a drawing with the stoops, both an elevation and wall section. And we talked about the balcony areas, but, can we just look at that one more time? Materials in the stoop detail, particularly for the base. Well, that's a good question. What is that ground plane? Is it all concrete? Is it a different material?
This will be brick?
Yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah. It'll be brick, but it needs to be shown as brick. Yeah, we'll have to revise the drawings.
So the facade, the face of the stoop will be brick?
Yes,
The face
And
and the
this-
return.
Okay, and then the stairs themselves, the steps,
we poured concrete.
concrete, and then the stoop top itself, the deck, concrete, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have railing details?
These are
This is it?
typical railing
it?
details.
What about the canopy, the awnings? Do you have details for those included in your detail sheet?
Not anything beyond what you see here, Susan.
Those
Okay.
are normally spec'd by our GC to prefab.
Okay, they are gonna be prefab, okay.
That most are,
Yeah.
unless Florida market has changed in the last few years where they're not prefab, but most of those awnings are prefab.
Pre-engineered, prefab. Okay.
In other words, they're a product.
Yes, they're a product, and so there's just like, we know what we want, we look and the feel, but the actual manufacturer and the cut sheet, the GC chooses that. They tell me, I'm gonna build it for X, and as long as it meets the requirements of the look and feel, the material, the dimensions, then I don't care where they source that actual, it's a commodity product.
Okay, I have one more question. That's actually a question, not something from the list. At the garage, can we look at your rendering, please, of that side? And I understand that you have done a study and you're trying to provide a solution to prevent spillage from headlights and, bless you,
Bless you.
that you're detailing the facade in a way to prevent the headlights to become an issue. It was the first or second one you were on.
You just went by. Yeah,
That
there
one,
you go.
right there in the middle, the bluish gray in the middle to the left. So, are you working with a lighting consultant and designer?
Not yet.
So, has there been any discussion yet about concerns regarding the spillage from the overhead lighting? One of the things that we have found in our other historic districts with large parking structures, it's not necessarily the headlights, it's this overspill from the lighting. Garages tend to have, especially in a residential unit, brighter lighting for safety concerns as well as the egress.
Yeah, so my question, I asked this to staff earlier, we're happy to design to a set, what, looms?
So the
So,
code,
but if
the
there's, if
code,
there's a standard that says, hey, it can't be more than this within this many, we're happy to design that.
right,
But without guidelines, it's really difficult to say, because what is,
So-
what is the, right? What is the
Unders-
goal we're trying to meet? And we're happy to meet it, we just have to know what the goal is.
understood, but
Are the-
we can't provide you with a foot candle, and the code gives you foot candles for different uses. What we're talking about is spillage over into the ground plane area below. And
So what-
projects typically will have, such as this, the scale of this, will have a lighting consultant. That was my question.
Oh, yeah, so we'll definitely have a lighting consultant, where my question was as though it's, they design to a standard of what is, so the looms that are allowed on the ground, the spillage, they say now we're gonna design the lightage package to ensure that it doesn't exceed the minimum. If there's not a minimum, and I don't mean to be, I just don't know what I'm designing to, or what that he or she will design for us, because I don't know what guidance to give them.
Correct, understood.
Yeah, so happy, yes, so, sorry, short answer, you're right, I didn't answer the question. Short answer is yes. Question would be is, if there's any guidance or any precedent that you can provide to say, this is the requirement we would like you to achieve, we're gonna achieve it 100%.
Perfect, thank you. Is there a follow-up question then?
Yes, I would like to be able to follow up, just a brief item on that. I understand the illumination issues that you're gonna have throughout this project, but particularly in a semi-enclosed parking garage situation that we have with multiple stories, you have certain functional requirements for light. I mean, 24/7, you need illumination for being able to move around, be there safely, security of your people, the whole 9 yards. Understand that. But you have to look at this. This is a 7-story beacon, 24/7, all night long. And I think the real crux of the question is, what are you going to do to stop that light in your garage from trespassing into the public way?
So what is the definition of trespassing in the public way?
If it leaves the face of your building.
So then,
Because your building is on your property line.
then if that's the code, or that's the standard, then we will design to meet that standard. I just need to know what the standard is. So and I'm sorry that I'm not, if I'm not giving the right answer, but whatever you want the standard to be, you tell us what the standard to be is, and we design to that standard. And we're not gonna fight about it, because it's what y'all want and what we're here to have a project, not, I just need to know, and I'll do it.
We understand, we honestly do. I was gonna ask about the storefront earlier, and I apologize. What is the intent for the storefront? Is that narrow, medium, or wide style? Do you have an idea at this time?
I don't know what that means.
The width of the aluminum tubing between glass panels. It would be the minimum to meet code, but it would be a standard storefront.
Okay. So the intent is to have as low a profile as possible in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah.
the metal to the glass?
Again, as much transparency as possible
Okay.
without getting into a Fowers Glass Technologies, super expensive
Yeah, I
slim
gotcha.
pack.
I gotcha.
Right.
Compactor and transformer doors, what are the intent for those? Compactor and transformer doors, the understanding that they are on public facades?
The intent is to make them compatible with the historic architecture. So whether they be aluminum or some other similar material, they won't be something that would be offensive, because it's all part of the ambiance of the project.
So beyond a plain flush,
Yeah,
Panel.
have some detail, and we're happy to have staff approve it,
okay?
as we are with all of these things. We understand there's a lot of things that will show up on the construction documents that won't show up on these plans.
Understood, we do
Yeah.
understand that as well. Are there indeed fabric awnings? I know we've talked about the metal ones,
Well, they're vinyl. I mean, we used
Okay.
to call them canvas, no, they're really vinyl.
but there are vinyl ones? I thought those were all metal.
We have a combination.
Where are the vinyl ones? I'm sorry. I know I saw a green and white stripe thingy, but when we're looking at the elevations and the wall sections, all I saw was metal canopy.
Yeah, we'll have to call them out for you, exactly.
If you want them all metal, we can do them all.
No, they're vinyl, right?
Yeah,
Okay. We got that. Are there any outboard stairs other than the stoops that are not enclosed? That will be on public view?
No,
Okay.
not unless they lead to a patio or a stoop. So what do you call it now?
All foundations will be hidden by the brick as it comes to ground, correct? There's no exposed foundation anywhere?
No.
Okay. All courtyards and walkways are concrete, correct, as we've talked about that? Did you show hardware and lighting? I can't remember. Do you have that with you today?
So we have
we showed lighting,
illustrative,
yeah.
where we're,
We showed the lighting, but we did not show,
Is it that
Hardware.
last one on the slide deck?
yeah, that's, yeah.
That one right there? We looked at the doors, but we didn't go down to the hardware?
no, the lighting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And hardware would be consistent with, on the top left, to be, you know, the bronze.
but it would be that type of hardware, the pull with the lock above, and then, I'm sorry? Well, it's levered. I'm sure it has the little,
Except it'll be, instead of a key, it'll be a fob, so that it's more secure. So
Okay.
it'll be a key fob entry.
do you have any ADA compliant apartments?
We will, yes.
Are they on grade level?
They will have to, well, it's an elevator building, so they don't have to be on.
They don't
grade.
have to use these exterior doors.
No. I don't know the requirements right now in terms of we hire ADA consultants, just like waterproofing and lighting. So they'll make sure that we meet code, minimum for ADA and clearances and B versus A
Okay.
units types. So, but no,
Um,
we don't have that. Sorry, yeah, short answer is no, they're not shown on the drawing. right
Okay,
now.
all right. And then, the street lighting, is that the intended fixture that's just to the right?
We like it.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah, yeah.
That's your intention
That's our
for
intent.
street lighting?
For street lighting and the park as well.
And that's along every street edge?
They would,
Seventh, Ebor?
I don't
isn't that
think
the city that provides that?
It
through the-
depends on where it is on the property.
Right, but in the park, so in the park it would be
I think
hopefully
in the
this.
park, I'm unaware of street lighting other than that's on the face where we have
Well,
the,
you're doing it on the building facade, probably.
yeah, that's the same feel and look, the one that you can't see.
Right,
That
okay.
one, yeah, so that'll be on the side of the buildings by that's what we're using.
When
for
you're,
the
when you're on an edge of a facade, you would have those where
Yes.
it's right up against, okay.
Yeah.
All right, yes, your point is correct. Sorry. So we talked about the benches. There was no cut sheet for that, right? And there's no cut sheet for trash receptacles that would be fixed in any manner on the property?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm And that's kind of something that, we need to talk to the city about that, because like the right-of-way where the train stop is, the trolley, like who's gonna do the trash and how is that, like, is that ours or is that the city's that maintains that? We don't have it, because I just don't know how that'll
Okay.
work on that side.
All right, that is it for my questions. Are there any other questions for the owner, applicant, agent? No. Okay.
It's a, well,
Sorry.
I'm just going to say that it's a very unhistorical garage elevation that you showed us.
That's for comments.
Okay, that's a
Word
comment,
questions.
okay.
Word questions. It's okay.
So I'm done.
It's getting long. So you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Well, to try to address that statement, we tried to emulate the proportions of windows by our openings in the garage. And instead of a continuous horizontal slot, which we'd all hate, and we tried to bring the bronze aluminum railings in there as well to add more pedestrian scale and some detail. So it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than a typical parking garage. And we really appreciate this issue of the light, especially on the ceiling. And yeah, I'll take the blame because I did both of the parking garages in the Barrio Latino Ybor City district. And because of budgets and everything else, we had to put ceiling fixtures, and they're awful. And it's a double-edged sword. Everybody's scared about being in a parking garage that's dim. And maybe we can get away with some sort of sconces on the wall that provide the required illumination. And instead of some god-awful ceiling fixtures. So thanks for bringing it up. Thanks for making it an issue. We're going to try to address it.
Yeah, no, we appreciate all the feedback. I think one thing that I would say, and I don't know if rebuttal is the right word, but a lot of the changes that were made from when we received the staff report to today, the timing of the meetings creates a little bit of a challenge because we've done a lot of work over that week, but it's not incorporated in, and you're seeing it real time for the first time. So, obviously if there's any more detail or anything you need, obviously we have copious notes here of additional details and additional items that we'll go to. But, in terms of, we'll respond to the feedback we get. And so we appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Kamaria, I have a question. I want to ask staff something. Do I need to go back and do anything? We're not closed yet, right? So I can ask a question of staff?
Right, it's just as long as they have
The opportunity to rebut if it's something like that. Okay. So Ms. Lund, there was a fairly extensive list of items that I've tried, and I think others have tried to check off and say whether or not those things have been noted tonight or if they need to be included in drawings because they weren't tonight. Maybe this is for you. How much of that do we actually have to state wrote if we move this forward with conditions? Or can we say, refer to staff report and ensure all those items are included, other than specific ones that we think are very, very important to specifically denote?
So, Kamaria Pettismackle from the City Attorney's Office. If I didn't hear or understand your first part.
So there is an extensive
Yes,
list
2
with the
pages.
staff report.
Yeah.
I have never seen a list this extensive, I have to admit, in my time on the board.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain things that we probably will all agree on as being very primary forward, right, that we will enumerate.
Okay.
But to put 30 things that may be minor, such as ensure the details correspond to the elevations and vice versa, if that's spelled out in the staff report, can we say refer to the staff report and make sure those items are in?
Well, I think that the danger with that is just ensuring giving direction to staff. What are those items that are, if you say refer to the staff report, if you're, don't state the condition, which element are you referring to? Which condition are you wanting to refer to this, to staff to address? Your motions have to be, that's why they have to be so specific.
It sounds like we have to hit everyone. Okay.
If that's a condition that the board would like to put,
Yeah.
or if that's a concern for the board, you have to state that with particularity.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
I would have accepted, Susan, just refer back to this, because we know.
But I'm also an architect, and I understand the legal contractual
Yes.
nature of that response.
Yeah, no, we understand, we appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, so I think that was your rebuttal in response to that.
Yes, that was the rebuttal.
So
Now
we're
we're
going to
done.
go ahead
We're
and
done.
close the public portion of the hearing, and we're going to discuss the case. So, any particular item that we should discuss? I think in terms of the garage lighting discussion, I think they're completely in agreement that they need to spend some time with that and understand it and what that means, and they've already stated that they're going to have a lighting consultant.
I think we should be clear that the lighting is not our issue. We all know that the garage has to be well lit. Our concern is what we see of the garage from the street, or from the sidewalk, or from the trolley, which right now is a lot of wall and then a lot of empty space, which means at night a lot of light. So that is generally an issue, and it's gonna be an issue because it has to be well lit. And we're not arguing that it has to be well lit, or providing how much illumination is required, or in what fashion.
Exactly, yes.
But it being a large wall, which is a monolithic material with just large openings and some railings, I think is probably unsatisfactory for the historic district. And to argue that, I think we would need a historic reference to give it precedence.
Or how it's screened.
But that would be the solution to this problem.
I agree. Elaine, can you actually go to the next one? I think that's the one with, thank you.
I find generally there are like large area, because we're dealing with a 7-story structure, which is atypical for the district. I think in the presentation that we receive here, having references to materials and to even decisions that were made, like how do we justify, what is that, 4 or 5 units wide and 5 stories long of a material that we're unfamiliar with in the district, on top of it being a very, very large area covered in the same material.
I personally am not bothered by the fiber cement board. I think it is a reasonable, modern material that gives us a smooth surface, which is not unlike a sand finish stucco. I think that, and it could be that we can get picky about joints. Maybe they can suppress some of the joints. I am not a specialist in this, so I can't, how large those panels can be, and it's a relatively stable material, so it can be a pretty large panel, but I'm not sure what the dimensions are.
I think even understanding what those joints in reality look like, and presenting, if we're seeing very small joints, like on the stair tower, for example, what we're looking at next to the parking garage, like that is one large area of this material. Does it need to be broken up by something? It's just, I think bringing historic references and understanding the historic district is critical for making this project successful, and we all want it to be successful, and we all know it has great potential to be. So I don't want that to be misread, but making sure that the area that this is belonging in, that this is uncharacteristic. So making sure that it's given all of its opportunities to blend well and not overwhelm its neighbors or overwhelm its district is really important, and I'm not sure that we're there.
No, I agree. I think this project still has some modulation that needs to happen to it. I think this facade is primo for me. This is the way you come out of downtown and you come into the district and you leave the city proper, right? And you're heading into the burbs and beyond. This facade is going to be prevalent for quite some time because we don't know when the next lot's going to be developed, and we don't know how much of it. So it's going to have a presence, and even after that, when the lot across the street or lots are developed, this still has weight to it, and this one particularly doesn't read very, it doesn't feel like the district to me. It feels way too much like a side facade that might be more on an alleyway, and there just isn't enough rendition in terms of the volume and massing, moving and allowing it to break down and be a little bit more accommodating to scale, and recognizing the fact that it actually borders this historic district, and there are a lot of smaller structures within that district. We understand that it's on Florida. We understand that it's near an 8-story plus high-rise that was before our time, but the impetus for our being here is that it has to fit within the district, and we can't look to the development of the heights to the west of the district and say, well, that's precedent, and be okay with this. I agree. I think maybe even looking at material choice, where it occurs and where it doesn't, helping to further break down, especially the garage component. Garages are the hardest things for a historic district. It doesn't matter where it is, but I think there are precedents that look to history, read it, and understand how to accommodate it more comfortably.
Even like the brick at the bottom, the brick runs the full length of the bottom of the entire building.
Yeah.
Is there a way to break that up so that as a pedestrian, there is a delineation between residences and commercial spaces?
Well,
or
certainly.
even just looking at this as a whole, it's,
Or
full
even
city block
even
of brick.
elements, architectural elements.
Right.
Often you'll see that as well. But I think the main point here is that there's some massing that still needs to be done, studies, and then learning how to make that garage component feel more comfortable in that
So
space.
can I ask a question? So the concern is just the garage or the entire thing?
That entire facade.
Just that side?
Because even if that wasn't garage, if it was more of that elevation to the left of the garage, it would still be a sameness. It would read pretty
Which
flat.
street?
This is 7th. This is the old road to Ybor.
The main street there, but where you turn into the parking garage in the center of the structure, what street is that?
That was
That's
the
it.
alley. That was the vacated alley. That's one of the alleys
It's
that
not,
was
so it's
vacated.
not 7th.
No, 7th is in
Yeah,
front
when
of
you
the
see
facade.
the yellow car, that's 7th.
Yeah, the yellow car is on 7th.
And, okay, and then this silver Audi is on what street?
Oh, that is, what is that one?
That should be Florida.
No,
Shoot,
it's
I
not
forget
Florida,
what
it's
that one is.
Morgan?
Whatever
So
that
turn
one,
it
it's
around.
not Florida, it's parallel to Florida.
Morgan.
Morgan, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's Morgan.
Oaks on the other side, and Florida is far to your left.
So because that's 7th Avenue.
I don't think just because it's 7th.
Well, I'm just saying if it was like interior on the back or something, like
But
an
there is
alleyway.
see, that's the
there's not
thing,
one.
this project doesn't have a back, it took the entire block.
Right, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
it
just
has
trying
4
to,
public faces.
exactly.
Yep.
I think that we have been presented by the city council with a project for which there are no historic, what is the proper word? Historic references in the district. But the district does go from, the dates on the district are 1890 to 1945. Have I got that right?
Well, the Sanborn's 1920. I don't know.
We used Sanborn to set a reference point, but yes,
But stylistically, I believe that we had said that the majority of the constructions occurred before 1945. And in Tampa, that meant that things were very small. Now, we have a block square building, and I think that there is perhaps a solution for this that recognizes that it is indeed a block square building, and it doesn't need so much to be broken up into little bits. And that still will fit, based on its use of historic reference, into the historic district.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's kind of, you said it much better than I did, but that's kind of where I was trying to go with my comments.
You know, even if you think about it this way, this is, you know, this is our gateway into our historic district. But I also want to think about it also as an extension of the traditional old school Franklin commercial district. As it came up through, took the turn and went up the streetcars of Tampa and Florida, and that level of architectural detailing would have continued all the way up that way. Throw in 275, some forgotten history, misdevelopment, and there's a lot of holes in the fabric of this area that need to be filled. But even if you want to talk about precedents, I'm not yet convinced that an adequate regard and analysis of precedent justifies this kind of mass in the first place.
I think,
even though everything in this district south of Palms is getting redeveloped and has a denser zoning classification today than it ever has had in the past, we are seeing more and more and more development, and it's larger and larger and larger. And to some extent, I understand where that's coming from, but there's a big difference between the 4-story Kresge building downtown and 7 stories here.
This sort of reminds me of the big massing that is Armature Works. I don't believe that's in the historic district, but
No, it is not.
But it's very close.
it is a historic, I don't know if it's in
It's
I don't know if it's one of
It
our
might be a
designated.
historic building.
But it's a historic building.
right. So it reminds me a little bit of that area, and it's not far away.
and
It's not the same scale, though. It is commercial, industrial, actually. We have examples of commercial in this district, but they're not full blocks. I think the biggest concern here is that this is the entryway, for me, this is the gateway into this district. It is on a primary street coming out of our downtown. And this facade specifically, because unfortunately it also houses the main facade for the garage. There's an opportunity here, I can read it. There's a massive void relationship that I can read. I think there are opportunities to play with the garage element to help break down this mass a little bit more. There's enough modulation when you look at it from a third and a third and a third, but when you put it all together, there isn't enough. And that garage component is the thing that's like the thorn on the rose, in my view. And you know, they know that we have this concern about the light. We have seen projects come before us that have reconsidered what that means from an architectural design standpoint, and have done things that actually incorporated architectural features and detailing that actually brought that project over the top. So it's not to say throw the entire bath water out, but I think maybe it needs some new hot water to freshen it up. I don't know. But
It needs references
Yeah.
to me. I know that there's nothing like this, but what is the connection between this and its neighbors, its district? we were not presented today with any information that gave us that marriage.
I mean, I can
I agree.
understand the need for a reinvention,
Yes.
but from where? What's the spring point for that reinvention?
I agree.
What justifies it?
Any other discussion points?
I want to say, while we have discussion available, with a project like this, we would typically run through all 31 slides and sort of receive the full project information as the presentation, and that's very helpful for us to understand the project from the creators, understand where the ideas came from, how the details come together, because we're
And
receiving the
define details.
presentation, right, instead of just like pulling questions out. So I just want to give that as.
And I think one of the reasons why we're frustrated a little bit by that is, and just follow me for a moment, is that this is such a very large project in such a beginning stage of its detailing that even the most fundamental things, such as what's happening with the windows, is basically a stick drawing right now without any detail or even a discussion as to where these details are going. This stuff has not been cast in stone. And that's just by virtue of the sheer size of this project. You're not going to get down into that level of granularity in terms of your details, your materials, and all the rest of that at this stage. It doesn't exist.
Actually, I don't agree with that entire statement. We saw wall sections, we saw sheets of details, and they even zoomed in on some of the details as we started to ask questions. I do agree that there are certain components and that need more documentation for us to move forward with staff and actually let this project move forward. The biggest sticking point, I think, is the precedent. I do agree that when projects are brought before us, when they have a PD rezoning, you start over at certificate of appropriateness and you tell the whole story again. As I stated before, not all of us have been here and heard the story, and this is a different hearing and it needs to be documented, so I agree with that comment. Any other?
Well, we're not going to get a smaller building.
No, we're not. We're not asking for that.
Well, Steve, it seemed like you were maybe, I mean, whatever we thought about the mass, we now have to set that aside, I think, and try and make this very large building something that is historically appropriate. I'd also like to throw one thing in, because I am disturbed by the hip-roofed towers, and I don't think that they are conducive to accepting the fact that it's a big building. It's not an assemblage of little buildings. And my feeling is that it needs to be recognized as a big building with a variety of parts. And I don't think they're helping.
I think if they bring forward that type of historic precedent, then I can buy into it, but we don't have that. So we can't say either way. And it's okay, I'm not asking them to replicate an entire building from history.
Right.
But at least we could have something to chew on. And I can tell you what I think some of the stylistic intention is, but it's not my project. So are there any other concerns or items that we should talk about? And I think we need to review what was in the staff report and really understand if we're gonna move this forward with any conditions, what those conditions are. Because I have no clear idea. There's just so much on this list.
I could not move this project forward with conditions.
Okay. Any other comments?
I also don't feel that it's ready to move forward.
Anyone wishing to make a motion at this time?
Well,
We can't,
We can't. So
Well-
we can either make a motion, do an up, down,
or they can request a continuation.
but we can't ask them.
That's what you wanna do. Just say that you wanna say that you want to
Hi, we've been listening. Tyler Hudson, 400 North Ashley Drive. We'd like to request a continuance because I think a denial would be pretty draconian, clearly an approval. I think there's some incompleteness. I would ask that in the motion, we have the staff report, so and it's getting late. We certainly aren't going to ask you to read the entire staff report. I do think it would be helpful that in the motion to continue, if you are willing to grant that, we could get a little bit of specific direction about things we need. And to be clear, we heard you guys more historic references, but some specifics,
Well-
like is the garage lighting?
It's either a continuance or not a continuance, it won't reference any of those conditions.
You can, okay, that's fine. We'll say
That's
continuance
just-
is fine. I mean,
That's just the
We've
way
heard
it
you.
works, sorry.
yeah.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for continuance? Oh,
Yeah,
that's
we need
correct.
to.
I'm sorry, Elaine, do we have the next date available?
It's
please?
May 4th.
May 4th?
No, you want May 2nd? Okay.
Which one?
May 2nd.
May 2nd?
May 2nd,
Thank
please.
you.
Move to grant a continuance in case ARC 22-145 for the property located at 1701 North Florida Avenue to the May 2nd public hearing at 5:30 PM.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye and indicate so. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, seeing none, motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all.